If you're spending above and beyond what you bring in each month, then it's time to really check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Hey, it's Tess, and this is Wander Wealthy, a channel and community for women in their 20s and 30s looking to get inspired and get results towards achieving their personal growth, travel, and money goals. Today, I wanted to give you guys some tips on how to budget on an inconsistent, irregular, and fluctuating income. So if you're new to this channel, then you probably don't know that I am a notorious, terrible budgeter. I hate budgeting. Every budgeting methodology I've ever used has never worked for me, and that is why I created the anti-budget. I will link the video to it up here. You can check it out. I also have a free training for people to watch where I step them through how to set up their anti-budget. I provide a free anti-budget calculator and a weekly tracking template. Now, the anti-budget is a completely different way to approach your budgeting. It's still a budget of sorts, but it keeps you on track with your money, helps you manage your money, and even helps you save, pay off your debt, or invest, because the anti-budget is just an intuitive, tangible way to manage your money. In the training, I address some questions on how to do this and use the anti-budget on an inconsistent income, but I figured I would create a public video for you if you use a different budgeting methodology or you use my anti-budget and you have more questions. Let's dive in and talk about some of the tips that I have for your irregular, inconsistent, and fluctuating income budget. All right, so tip number one is, just like I advise with any type of budget or money management, is to get really clear on what your necessary number is. This is your baseline amount of money that you spend or save every single month. So calculate what those monthly fixed expenses are. How much does it cost you to run your life? So, you know, I'm talking about rent and utilities and all those random monthly payments that you have to make, even including your debt payments, your insurance, everything under the sun that you pay out on a monthly basis that is necessary for you to be alive today. What are all of those numbers? I want you to figure out what that normal baseline amount is and add a buffer of 10%. So take that baseline expenses and multiply it by 1.1. That will give you a little padding on top of that, because our life is always more expensive than we think it is. Next, I want you to add onto this baseline your savings goals, your extra debt payment goals, as well as your investing goals. However much money you plan or like to set aside every month for your future self or to pay off your past self, I want you to add that onto your baseline number. This gives you your necessary number. Whether your income fluctuates or not, it's very, very important for you to know what this number is, because it really is that heck no number that if you're not making above that, then you're really, really, really living above and beyond your means. Knowing what this number is will help you understand how much income you need to make going into the month, because often if we have a fluctuating income, we might have a little bit more control over how much money we make. And so we either need to grind a little longer, hustle a little harder, or just work a little bit more hours to make sure that we at least hit that necessary number. The second thing to do is to base your budget, how much you can spend beyond this number, which typically goes towards all the discretionary spending. So extra grocery shopping, going out to eat with friends at restaurants, buying coffee at the coffee shop, or spending money on entertainment, clothes, travel, etc., etc., etc. In order to figure out how much you have for that, you need to know how much you're going to make. Well, it's a little bit difficult if you live on a fluctuating income. So what we like to look at least to get a good idea, is last month's income. It is in my opinion that I tend to know how much money I'm going to be bringing in next month because of the nature of my work. I live off of a fluctuating income. I have coaching clients, I do freelance work, I do consulting work. I know what my price points are, and I know kind of what the scope is going to be looking like for next month, and I have a pretty good idea of how much money I'm going to need in order to live my life and how much I'm going to be making beyond that. But if you don't, then obviously you can just look back to next month to get a good prediction. So now that you know how much you probably are going to make and how much you typically spend, you can add that together, minusing the expenses. And if you have a negative number, then this is a big reality check moment. It's time to scale back some things. So look at your cost of living. Are you living in a place that's too expensive? Are you spending too much money on food items? Is your utility bill too high? Is your internet bill too high? Should you cut your cable down? Look at how much you're really spending, because if you're spending above and beyond what you bring in each month or what you can even predict to bring in each month, then it's time to really check yourself before you wreck yourself. If you know what I'm saying. If you prefer to get even a little bit more cushion, then again, you're gonna have to look at some things that you can take away or figure out what it's going to take for you to get the income you need in order to be able to spend more money on discretionary spending. My third tip is not necessarily the next step, but it kind of coincides with the second one. It's what I like to do to predict my anti-budget and how much I'm earning and how much I'm spending. And that is, in general, I know how much I can make in a year. And I do know how much I absolutely, the lowest amount of money that I can make within a year. Typically, I have an idea of this is the baseline of what I know I'm going to make this year, and I really just hustle to make beyond that. So because of the way that my business and income is structured, I can do this. So I have a number in mind, and I typically base my budget and how much money I can spend on a discretionary basis off of this number. And then anything I make beyond is usually a bonus. That's another way you can approach it. If your income fluctuates, but you kind of know what the bare minimum that you will be making in the year is, I always like to say, well, what if I just had to live off of just that number so that everything else is just bonus? It either helps me grow my wealth for my future, gets me around the world working from a remote location, or it helps me pay off my mortgage on my house even faster. All right, the last thing that I have to recommend if you live and try to budget on an inconsistent, irregular, fluctuating income is to have a buffer account. A lot of people have an emergency savings account, and I think that is absolutely necessary. I like to call it my oh shit account, and I save in it religiously, and I use it. I really do if something bad happens. Now, my emergency savings account is really for those emergency situations. Something breaks down, I have to fix something, I have to make an emergency travel plans, or I am completely out of income and I need to live on something. Now, what I like to have in addition to my emergency savings account is a buffer account. When I started becoming self-employed, working for myself, freelancing for others, being an independent contractor, I knew that I was probably going to make a more inconsistent income. So I opened up another checking account that worked as a buffer account for myself. What this does is it holds a sum of money that can help buffer the months where I'm lacking on work and need to make sure that I can transfer some of that money over for when my expenses need to be paid. So here's how you do it. On months that are a little bit extra, you get a little bit more money in, move some of the money that you don't spend that are above your necessary number into your buffer account. That way, if the following month you're a little bit more dry on the money side, you can transfer some of that buffer money into your checking account where you pay your bills so you know that your booty is covered. It might take a little bit of time to build up that buffer account, but just remember, you can always use your emergency savings if you have to until you really have a good buffer in your account. I'm a huge fan of the multiple checking and savings accounts method for additional money management. And if you want to check out my video on how exactly I do that, you can click up here. I will also link it in the description box below. Those are the best tips that I have for you guys today, especially if you're operating off of a fluctuating income. If you have any questions or you just want to join the money conversation, make sure to join our Wander Wealthy private Facebook community. Go to www.wanderwealthy.com/FB to get access to our special community there. And don't be shy. Feel free to leave a comment on this video or in the community. I'm always open to answering any questions you might have, comments, or recommendations for the next video. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up so I know to make more videos just like this, and subscribe to my channel. It really helps out my channel so that more and more people can see how to manage their finances in the best way possible. If the anti-budget is interesting to you, you can check out the video and access the free training. I will leave a link in the description box below, but you can also click up here to get access right away. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you wander wealthy.